Welcome to the Afrovibes Festival. Hello, everyone. How are you doing? How are you doing? Okay, I can hear you. My name is Stephanie Afrifa, and I'm the moderator for this evening. And by the way, this evening is being live streamed by the Institute for Creative Arts in South Africa too. So hello to the people in South Africa. That camera right there. So, subculture becoming mainstream. This evening is about exploring the relationship between subcultures and the mainstream, about the impressive impact artistic initiatives in the subcultures are having in art globally. The lead that new artistic forms and storytelling are taking nowadays. Not the new normal, but the other new. We have some main questions. We just discussed here that we're going to act like we're having a barbecue and just having a conversation amongst people who work in the field. And we will discuss our views and best practices with Abdul Kinyenya. I told you already that I'm going to mess it up when we're live. I did this well before. He's a choreographer, social entrepreneur, and co-founder of Afrovibes, a dance company and school in Uganda. And Abdul is a lot. He's a social entrepreneur, educator, business strategist. You do so much, but we're going to hear about that later on. Then I'm also with Nita Liem, a choreographer and director of Don't Hit Mama, a dance theater organization inspired by club culture, American culture, just dance. And then dance? Party, dance. And then we have Rudy Asibey. She's the founder of Alkebulan, a multidisciplinary network organization in which creatives with different backgrounds have joined forces to create a more intersectional and inclusive media landscape in front and behind the lens. Very important.
Yes.
And we're also going to have a spoken word performance by Ivan Words, but we're going to have that in like 30 minutes. So welcome to the barbecue. At first, because I'll shortly introduce yourself, but like those 10 words are not enough to just like get down who you actually are. Rudy, I want to start with you. Who are you? What's your mission?
I'm a lot of things, but let's start with I'm Rudy Asibey. I'm Ghanaian. Well, I always say I'm Ghanaian, but I was born in the Netherlands, in Amsterdam, to be exact. I started Alkebulan 10 years ago almost, and our mission was to create like a platform, a safe space where we can create things that we haven't seen on TV. So it developed into a production company and where we create all things with different kinds of people, a lot of people of color and especially women of color, because we felt like we were missing that in the Dutch media landscape. Yeah, so that's my mission, to make sure that we have good representation in the media landscape. Yeah.
What about you?
Oof. First of all, it's evening, right? Just
yes,
to be
it's
sure.
evening.
Yeah, good evening, everyone that is watching. I go by the names of Muyingo Kinyenya, and I'm from Uganda. I'm human, just to mention that you know. I work with an organization called Batalo East, which I co-founded with a lot of young people from home. And I think it's, if I can just talk about the mission in terms of, or vision, in terms of what we write, just to make that official thing. Our mission is a generation of young Africans and artists who are aware of their identity and really value their identity. Just that. But we use a lot of different forms. Of course, we do a lot of we organize a festival at home. We organize a lot of dance classes. We go into different communities, teaching, archiving our history. We travel around the country, writing books about different parts of our culture, including drum making, from drum making to storytelling. It's quite a lot. But I'm here now.
Nice, thank you.
Welcome.
What about you, Nita?
I'm Nita. I'm an artist, and to relate it to the topics in this topic for tonight, in 1992, I started to work with, at that time, they call it Youth at Risk. I worked for 8 years at that time for making theater for and by young people. And in that period, I really got in touch with hip-hop culture, what was known here in the Netherlands. And that was really inspiring to me, because I was trained as a modern educational dance teacher. And at that time, there were not many non-white students in the school. And the training I got was useful, but I really missed something. So always outside my education, I went to clubs, I went to see other things and other dance styles that particularly had a strong beat, because I really missed that exploring the movements, which was good for your body, but I really missed something. And then when I started working with young people, I really felt home. Most of them had a migrant background, as myself, and through that period, I really started appreciating hip-hop culture, club culture, the soul of it, the reason why people dance. And then in 2000, I decided to not only focus it on young people, because that was one of the, it's not a subculture, but it was a trend that they also saw here in the Netherlands, that hip-hop at that time was nice for young kids. It was not seen as a...
Something serious.
Something serious, yeah. And like my hip-hop friends from the States, they're 60, 70, I mean, they're still doing it.
Yeah.
Anyway, so in 2000, we decided not only to focus on young people, but make a platform so that we can continue the development of hip-hop artists. Mainly, I focus on dance, because that's my way of expressing, to follow these dancers and see how we can focus on the artistic part of the hip-hop culture and how to translate it into mainstream theater. Because at that time, it was exotic to have black dancers on stage who were not doing doo-wop or whatever. So by doing that, I had to train people around me because I really was convinced that they had to be seen on stage as well. But having not a traditional theater background, suddenly I had to also teach them and coach them, et cetera, et cetera. And then you get all these virals. So now I'm pretty good in educating and coaching, because I'm really passionate to get them there. And if there are gaps and there are no schools for it, then we do it. So that's what I've been doing for 20 years, supporting young dancers and young theater dance makers. And after 20 years doing that, I decided to stop, to focus on my development. Because mother is, if you nurture a lot, it sometimes also need time to look, okay, what is my next step, my next phase, my next position? And that's why I'm happy to connect with you guys, because now I have time to step out of my house, because it's as you all know, it's tough. If you have your own company, it's like that's the bubble I'm in, and that's what people want from me. That's what how they see. But I was really, I really want to reconnect with who is Nita now, and so and probably my role as an artist is to become me.
Yeah, this is so interesting, because you're mentioning a lot of things that resonate with me, especially that if you wanna introduce a subculture, or in your case, hip hop and dance, to a bigger world, you're constantly explaining and trying to pave the way, and instead of actually working on the arts. Is that something you recognize too?
Definitely. I think 10 years ago when we started, well, you were part of it as well. When we started Alkebulan, first we had to explain what Alkebulan is. For the people that don't know, Alkebulan is the name for Africa before it was named Africa. And we chose that purposefully because we felt like we wanted to dive into our history, our roots, and where we're from, especially because we're from the diaspora. A lot of the things that you learn and go through in the country where you're from, you don't go through or learn here in the Netherlands. So we felt like we had to go deep to find where we're from and where we're going, actually. And I think we knocked down a lot of doors, and they denied us because you just have to explain a lot, and you're working on explaining instead of doing what you want to do. I think in the last 4 or 5 years, we're actually doing what we want to do. But in the first few years, we had to explain and just talk a lot about, like, why are we doing this? Why is it necessary? Why is it called Alkebulan, and why is it not called something that's more appropriate for the white ears, I guess? and it was tough because in those few years we really felt like we weren't ready, that like we should quit, but we were working on something before the subculture exploded, I guess, because we felt already that there was something going on, but it felt more like that we wanted to do something for us and not for anyone else. But I think a lot of people around us weren't ready for that, and so then you're constantly in a battle and also trying to find yourself, and it was a lot of things together. Yeah.
Do you recognize it?
Oh yeah, of course, and it's quite interesting because I sort of recognize it, but at the same time, it brings a question of identity for me. Because if, let's say, hip-hop culture, right, which is, let's say, 70s, I think 2010, I happened to be in the US with the US Embassy as a hip-hop dance ambassador, whatever that means. And I met one of the sort of four founders of that culture, I think. Some people try to even feel like he's the one that coined the word hip-hop, Africa Bambaataa. When he talked about, I had so many questions, right? But at the same time, I was also observing what is going on. We were a group of different young people. But what was interesting was that I knew the Zulu nation, for example, the Zulu kings, but for me, the Zulu nation, I don't know it from the US. I know it from South Africa, from different places, and I was just curious at the same time. But when he told his story of how he traveled to South Africa and he saw this movement, it made me realize that maybe even with these guys, maybe there was an identity sort of crisis, and they wanted to belong, to something.
Yes.
And I know with all these movements, it all goes back to belonging, to like, oh, can I associate with these?
Yes.
Can I associate with
Can
these
I be
people?
part of it? Yeah.
So for me, and for us, it's always a question of a journey rather than really trying to fit into a certain culture, because at the end of the day, even what might be like a subculture, in the end, it's exclusive. Because I work so much in the hip-hop community, especially in the underground. Well, because it's like, it's cornered. It's also my observation. I feel it's just making it that it becomes exclusive in a way, and it seems like it's inclusive, but if you've lived, and for example, in the underground scene, it feels like, okay, this is the underground, these are the rules, there's a certain sort of rules going on there, even if like you're not real, you can't be part of this community, you belong to you're too commercial, you know what I mean? Like you don't belong here. So
you're not credible enough.
Exactly. So it's a question of belonging and identity, and I think this is what really this is what moves. No, I don't think. I feel, because I've lived some of these things, and I'm not a guru or something, or a philosopher of some sort, but I'm using my experiences and being present in those sort of communities. And one interesting thing is one of the reasons we started a festival, one of the dance festivals in Uganda, was a very interesting story, because we were in the UK and we had come to this big battle called Funkin' Styles. It was really big. It was like another battle called Just the Boo. They were so big in that time. And we trained so hard to go to this battle because we felt like we needed to make a statement. We were young, we had the energy, and we wanted to fit. We were like, no, we need to be recognized. It was about us. We were
a statement
selfish,
as in people from Uganda?
Yeah, my group called Taboo Flow, which Taboo means chaos, which is also another chaotic group, according to people, because we never had a specific way of operating. But when we competed, there were already different structures and different forms of where you can compete. This is called freestyle, this is called this, like there were names, but we had no idea, we were just moving. We had movement, and there was sound and there was movement. So that's what we wanted. So they were like, which style are you going for? Just put us anywhere, everywhere. And then we went, and there was one specific style called me versus music. So in a way, all these styles we didn't qualify, of course, because there were certain rules and all that, the way you move, you know, you were doing so much popping, you were doing more, you know. But what was interesting, one of the judges came to us, because I went to Me versus Music, the finalists, and we were even going to the washroom, and they told us, no, your name is on there, on the Me versus Music. Yeah. So that was a style that, not a style, that was something that they were also still navigating. Yeah. You know, it was just music and movement. Mm-hmm. Yeah. But what was interesting, when we talked to one of the judges, was talking in quotes, you know, like, even in these cultures, they're like people on top that make decisions, you know what I mean? But what was interesting was that he said, I felt a little bit, what was the word he used? He felt like he was just learning from us and he couldn't place it anywhere. Like he just felt a sudden energy. Yeah. And he thought that it was too much for us to go into this. We didn't have to do this because we were, I don't know, I can't really translate the words very well, but in summary, he was saying that no, in a way you were so different from this. You don't deserve this. And what the aha moment was like, okay, he said, you don't need this. You already have something. And that's why we're like, oh, maybe. But a lot of young people at home look at us and also want to go into these battles. So that's why we're like, no, let's create another something. We don't know what it is, and we're not going to have rules. Yeah. So just do whatever. In a way, we created a festival that is all about that, like self-discovery, just like young people showcasing, young people competing without really just specific styles, but just like living the moment and sharing. And it's young people across East Africa, which is also different identities. You have from people from Congo, which is like a beautiful source of movement and sound, all the way to Dar es Salaam, Tanzania, you know? So that interaction is something that we're still learning and we're still exploring. We really can't know what it is at the moment. We're just like also questioning. But what was interesting is the sense of when people feel that they know who they are, and without even relating. But just, we created a situation whereby they don't need to fit, but they need to feel who they are. They need to understand or learn who they are. You know, because also trying to fit into another, it will be another subculture or whatever culture, you know? So, I don't know, it's... No,
but I'm really happy that you brought it up, so we can completely skip whether a subculture going to mainstream is good or bad. Yeah. This is really about what it is about. It's what you say is bringing basically essence of hip hop back. Because that's what you were showing. What you were showing was what they lost. But to come back to the identity and the what is the thing? I was trying to catch up because you mentioned so many things. The whole identity and belonging, but also this whole tribal thing. Oh, you talk about Zulu Nation, for example. Yeah, because when I'm in South Africa and then a group of Americans coming to visit their homeland, whatever, it's a myth. But when I was exposed to hip-hop culture in that era, it came from America. It was born in an environment, in an urban environment with a lot of migrant people. So where is the history? Same for me, you know. Even in the Netherlands, there is no dance culture. Mainstream, if you even look at mainstream dance development here in the Netherlands, dance is the underdog in art form here in the Netherlands. We don't have a dance culture, so the value of dance art and what the wisdom in the body is very, well, that's a new territory. That's maybe my next step. But to come back to this whole myth, if you're a migrant, and what you say, I can relate to that. We're lost in this country, in Europe.
Definitely.
My American friends, they were lost. So when they can create a myth, I'm the Zulu Nation. Of course, it's a game. It's a computer game. And it's very, you know, somewhere deep in the DNA, they feel the need for, I belong to a tribe. Which one, I don't know, but let's play the game. I'm Zulu Nation. And then all these, the subculture, I'm most familiar with hip-hop culture. So all these big boys, you know, playing this big game and their rivalry forever. And that's fine if that's the game that you like, but it doesn't, it's a different thing if you talk about the art. But I think it's very much a scream for identity. And then what happens? The myth of the Americans comes to the Netherlands, and all these migrant kids say, they're like, wow, I want to be. But you know, when I was starting working 15 years old, 15-year-old told me, like, I said, what do you want to be? What's your dream? I want to be a gangster in America. I want to live in a ghetto. I was like, wow. Do you know what it's like to be in a ghetto? So there's this myth on a myth on a myth. And meanwhile, we hip-hop are crazy. Now it's going to the Olympics. So I want to say that's another culture shift.
Is it?
Yeah, it's a sport now.
Well, now it's definitely mainstream.
So is that a good or a bad thing? Well, it's definitely huge.
Yeah.
But, but where are we? Where are we then as human beings? What happens with the... I don't know, I'm not the one who have to worry about all the regulations in Olympics, nor do I have to be the judge and all that stuff. But it's a game, and it's interesting how we play in Juste Debout, in Funk and Styles. Me against the music, for people who haven't been to Funk and Styles. There's a DJ, and he plays music that's not specific for the dance, and then you have to work it out. But it's very creative. But that's what we did also in art school. In art school, you got these strange excitement, and then you had to move. So wherever you explore, you have to find your platform. Whether it was, you know, your little square behind your backyard, or it's now on a huge platform on Juste Debout.
Yeah, but I think
it's like a human need that we're searching for
something.
For something.
Rudy?
But I also think that when a subculture becomes bigger and bigger, that's when the rules comes in and regulation starts and judges come in, and then it's becoming more fluid and more structured, and that's when you lose the creativity, right? And it's not something anymore that everyone can join and have fun with and explore themselves and explore their identity, because I feel like your identity is also fluid and it's a journey. But then it becomes something that you can be excluded out of, you know? So I think for us with Alkebulan, and for me, it was also finding ourselves within the movement of whatever we were starting with Alkebulan. It started like choosing that name, but also finding out what it meant to be from the diaspora, what it meant to be Dutch and Ghanaian, what that whole identity was. And I think what's happening in the last 10 years, and I work a lot in the hip-hop industry as well, but also in, hip-hop now has become so much bigger. You can't even define what hip-hop is, and they use words here, urban. What the hell is urban? I mean, like, I'm in label rooms and they scream out urban, and I always say, are you saying that you want black people? Because let's be honest, that's what they mean. And you're sitting in those rooms and discussing things that are way like past what it was before, I think, and it's not fluid anymore. It's people that are not even evolved, and in that business, they're making the rules, and you're standing in front of them and trying to convince them. And I think when we really started to grow is when we let that go, trying to convince people, because that's where we started, right? Like trying to convince people, like, I understand what I'm doing. No, screw that. Just do whatever and just make it. What you said about the festival and being fluid and doing whatever, I think on the other side, on the business side of things, because that's where I mostly work in, that's where we lost the rules as well. When we created a festival, when we created the talk show, we screw the rules. We don't care about how De Wereld Draait Door, which is a talk show here in the Netherlands, does it. We do not care. When people come to us and they say, we want to be editors, we say, if you work in Hilversum, forget all the rules. We are not doing that. We're not going to do it that way. And that's when you go back to where you're from, where your roots are, and what you actually like to do. And that's when it starts to be authentic. So I think we were discussing it beforehand. It's like, what is authenticity and who decides it? I think you decide it, but you don't have to put that on someone else. Everyone can decide it on their own. Yeah.
And what we already mentioned a few times is the business side of things, because you have a bachelor degree in international business. And you consider that, whatever that means, all these terms, you consider this as an important part of leadership as an artist, because cultural entrepreneurship is linked to being able to work according to your own merits, your own rules, your own values. Can you tell me more about that?
Yeah, I mean, when you think about business, exchange of different, you give me something, I give you something. If we talk about it from that context, I want to separate this context because at some point I had to sacrifice a little bit of, which is a bit pity, a little bit of my beliefs and who I am, just because I was trying to also find compassion when we talk about young people who are left and, there's their realities. You can talk about all these fancy sort of words and cultures, young people being in the hip-hop culture, but sometimes you're working with young people who don't even know where they're going to sleep, who don't know what they're going to eat. So at some point, you can't really just try to tell them to think about who they are, They're like, yeah, and I'm trying to find out who you are. I'm trying to find out who you are, who I am, but I need food tonight.
Yeah.
Yes.
Don't tell me that, So in a way, you try to, if you have an opportunity to really understand how this other world or this other culture works, and trying to understand it does not mean that you agree with how it works. But it's just like you said, maybe you see the game and you decide, okay, usually I will not be playing this game, but I'm gonna learn it and play it just to fulfill something that I think these people in this game, or these not people, but this game doesn't really bring out, So you become a vehicle and a tool of learning these things. So meaning that, of course, within the arts, I think this is global. We talk about funding, we talk about where do we get the money to do all these things, where do we get the resources and all that. And coming from places where governments are really like, I don't know. Anyway, that's a different direction. I don't want to go into that. Politics, whatever. But if you look at the basics of really how you can make sure that young people can have basic needs,
Yeah.
You find yourself working in the arts, but also you find yourself becoming a parent for a lot of young people.
Yes.
Meaning that you need to provide not just the concepts or the art, you can talk about art, but there's a certain need, And this is why we really started to go into that, what you call business in courts, understanding that, okay, we can make some money or we can earn something that can also first cater for these resources. So we go into different things, taking, for example, growing coffee and trying to set up farms that we can have a certain control, which is also like egoistic in a way, because we also want to control our business and then be able to provide. But if if you're aware of it, it sort of helps, that this is what's happening. We're dealing with people who look at things differently. So if we're looking for money, we have to also create our own sources of how we can get those resources. Of course, sometimes we are in talks with a lot of different people who give money, to support poor Africa, whatever, or you know what I mean? Like, and you see some of our leaders really being at the top of these games, like really understanding it and sort of already in a relationship, a love relationship with the funders, with all these, is huge, But at the end of the day,
can you give examples of those people?
Well, I mean, I will get in trouble, and I want to serve the young people we're working with. And actually, I'm not going to mention who he is, but at the moment, because COVID hit, and we had received some funding to create some shows, and we were approached by people to like, we love what you're doing. Can you create a theater show? We already had some ideas, like, can we pay for this theater show?
Here in the Netherlands?
Not in the Netherlands, but they're somewhere from Europe. Anyways, so they give the money, and we decide to, we start the process, but everything is closed.
Yeah.
And then it's closed for years, and when we're like, we're not doing it, we don't just want to spend money. We believe in what we want to do. And then they're like, no, but time has gone. We have deadlines. It's like, okay, do you care about the deadline or you care about the beneficiaries?
Yeah.
And they're like, no, we have bourses and, government money and all that, people, taxpayers' money, and like as if they consult the taxpayers of where the money is going. But it's so sad to see that this is sort of a game you're in.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, you have to create. But it's not even coined in time because time is another thing, it's coined in really delivering a service and uplifting and helping, and not helping, but really like having a conversation with young people to really find out who they are and build where they come from. And you get into this side and it's like, no, we have deadlines, you can't use this money for that. We reached a point where like, no, we're not going to give you the money back.
Yeah.
Because this is like, we understand it's a game, but at the end of the day, we have commitments as well. We're not just young people who spin on our heads.
The purpose is community care.
Yeah, so anyways, to understand that business side and the different perspectives of it and be able to actually look for resources, especially financial resources, is also another skill that is needed. If you decide to go that way, you can't really just be present as, I'm the best artist, just book me. You have to understand how they operate.
Yeah.
But you also have to know that you're part of the circus, but have skills in the circus. You're part, well, in the circus, have those skills.
Learn to
you
dance.
create your own circus. I mean,
But then that's also, another sort of like, it's not any different from this, it's...
Well, you always have to deal with the circus that already was there, but I think that there's what you said, there's ways to learn from what's happening there and then take it, and make it your own, or learn from it and adapt it to what you want to do. But I think there's also a struggle and a battle in it, like what do you want to compromise? Which values do you want to compromise? Because when you talk about business, which is capitalism, you're always going to compromise something. So it's always a thing. And you always start with like this whole rose-colored idea, mission, like I want to change the world and all these kind of beautiful things, and keep having that. I'm not saying take it away, but there's always the reality there that you have to compromise in some way, even though you have created your own table, you're doing your own thing. We're in a capitalist society, and
in which ways did you have to compromise?
Well, I'm always the hard one. I never want to compromise, and gladly I work with Noelle, who's like my partner in crime, and I love her to death. She's always the one that goes into the room and says, "Okay, we'll do it."
Yeah,
I won't. I'll just stay out of that room. But I know that we have to. We had to in a few ways. Like before we did whatever we all did, and you see a few of the images. We started a festival in 2015 with our own money. Like Noelle and I just came out of school, and we just put our own money in it, and we're like, let's do a festival. Crazy idea, and we regretted it directly. Like it was amazing, but it was hard, and we got ourselves in huge problems afterwards financially. But it was amazing to do and see how it is to create that own table. But that's when we really realized like we can't really all do it on our own. We really do need. But you said the funding and the people, and that's where you have to compromise sometimes, But what we try to do is write down for us, like, what are the points that really would make us look at each other and be like, I hate you right now, right? And if our partner has one of those points, we'll never do it. We'll never do it. If we have to compromise in the scale of the things that we want to do, or sometimes an artist that you can book or whatever, that's okay. But then we always are pretty honest with our partners as well. Like, we are radically Black, and POC orientated. We are going to talk about subjects you might not like. Do you agree with that? If they don't, if they really say at the beginning, nah, we don't know, we want to have a say in what you guys are going to do with the content, we will directly say no, because we're like the boss of the content and what we're going to do and produce. But it's what I said, it's like a constant battle and finding a way of, you know, but what are your values and what are you ready to give up in some kind of way to achieve what you want to do? We work with supermalt, which is like a drink that most of the Africans know, I think.
Yes.
And but they're actually very honest with us, and we're honest with them. Like, they don't say anything about what we talk about, but they just support. But it's also, when we look at each other, we hate that we have to find a commercialized partner to do something like this. You know, we really do not like that we have to have bottles of some drink. And the fact that I'm even talking about this, they don't care. They really support us. I can talk about it without them being mad at that. Like, why are you talking about supermalt like that? Yeah, because they know. But it's annoying to have the bottle on the table and be like, hey, we're supported by supermalt. Yeah. But we also needed to create something that we really believe in. So it's a constant battle. But I feel like to do what we want to do, in some way, you have to play the game, and. But sometimes you just have to kick the game out and then just do whatever you want to do if you have the privilege to do so. And that's something and journey to go through and find a way. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Yes, of course.
It's a very interesting subject.
Oh, there's a microphone. Perfect.
What's your name?
My name's Rochelle Bramdo. I'm born in the Zulu part of South Africa.
I love your outfit. Looks good.
From Durban. We are 4 million Indians who are there, and I'm wearing Indian dress today.
Love it.
And but what I want to say is I'm an artist. Yeah. I live in the Netherlands for 25 years. And over the years, I've made attempts, and I've applied for funding. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to say the names of the companies I asked for funding because this is not a private meeting. Mm-hmm. But I was denied, and my former Dutch boyfriend, who was a Dutch filmmaker, made a 70-minute film in India. He was given 100,000 euros. Now, that's not a lot of money for making a 70-minute film, documentary, but he got it. It's okay. It was, you have the budget, you have the means to produce your art. What I want to say now is something that a lot of people don't want to hear, is we've got to look back into our dominated colonial history. Who did this to us? Who benefited? And why do we live in a wealthy Europe? Europe does not want to support us as black artists. I'm proof of that. I struggle. But what is the future? What can any one of you say to me as a dying artist with a physical disability? That, hey, go on, tell your story, be an artist, be brave. All our funding organizations here, whichever, is run by white people who do not want to listen to our story. We don't want to be bitter. I don't want to be bitter. But I have a story to say. But a lot of times, as a black person, you're accused. You're the first person who's accused of stealing. You're the first person as a black person. So I look at my life here in the Netherlands after 25 years, and I think, is there a future for me here in the Netherlands? As an artist, and let alone just an artist, but just as a woman. As a woman who left South Africa to come to the Netherlands for a better life. And what's really, really sad here is that you are brought down so heavy by the forces of this country. I'm now in what you would call in Dutch skuldsanering. What's that in English?
What is it in Dutch?
Skuldsanering, bankruptcy. I'm in bankruptcy for no problem of mine, not because I shop at Chanel or buy expensive shoes or clothes, not because I gamble, but because I have high electricity bills. This this is a very sad thing. So I don't want to talk about my private problems, but this is what we are talking about artists. You are there, you're telling your problems, you're saying what it is, and who controls this? Yeah. So how are we, what do we have to do to come out? Where are the organizations that are black-owned in this country that say, hey, go, we can give you money, we can support you? I want to make a program. I want to make a program on the colonial history, on our colonial history, Suriname, Curacao, South Africa, Sri Lanka.
Thank you so much for sharing this. I have to cut you off, but thank you so much. Is there someone who wants to respond to this? Very short, because we're going to a performance next, but this is very special that you're sharing this with us, and I think that
thank you for that.
It's something a lot of us or artists we know can relate to. So
yeah, I agree completely, because that's what we did as well. We asked for a lot of funding, got denied a lot of times, and I ask myself that question all the time. I do not have the answer. Hopefully, in the future, we'll all come together, put money in a fund that we can give to young artists so they can create that. I hope that Alkebulan can get that far and be that place where we can actually fund all of these beautiful stories. But I feel you, and thank you for sharing that story. Yes.
Do you want to respond, Nita?
I tried to be short, but thank you for your sharing, because I think this is going to be another week of talking. It's very much about our colonial awareness in this country, and it takes time. I mean, I'm not so positive. I don't know. I mean, in general, they teach me, my older teachers, like it takes 4 generations to be aware of something, and I mean. 350 years of being colonized in Indonesia. There's Sri Lanka. There's so many things. I don't have an answer. I only know that it goes very slowly, and it's only happening, I think, with the whole Zwarte Piet, with Black Lives Matter. I mean, it's for some people it's new. Of course, it's going on for years, but it goes very slowly. This awareness and the real passion or commitment, the commitment to really want to change. It needs to, from all of the sides. I mean, everybody is part of the colonial history. It's not only because we have a color, but everybody. But to really address that and have a meeting on that level, I don't know. To be very honest, I've hardly seen that happening. To be very honest, but we keep on going. I mean, for my part, and my next step is just telling my personal colonial history and share it in a artistic way, so that it's not so confronting, so that I'm not with a pamphlet and I'm only demonstrating, but maybe also show some poetry, but really showing the pain. And that's for me my little contribution to it as an artist. Yeah. But as a politician, I'm not a funder, so it's I can pray for you, but I have no answer to this.
Thank you so much. Okay, I'm going to look at one of our editors. Do we really have to stop at 7:30? We have 12 more minutes.
5 minutes.
5 minutes more. Okay, so then now I'm going to... do you want to respond?
Yeah, kind of.
Short, because we need a performance still.
Maybe there's nothing to really respond about. But when you asked how long, when is the time, and my thinking was like, if you take time away, what would be the question? Like if you take time out of that
equation.
Yeah, what would be the question? What would the question change? Just think. Just
give her some time to think about that.
Think about it.
So now it's time for a spoken word performance. I would like to introduce to you Ivan Words. He's a spoken word artist, poet, educator, and now he's gonna spit a piece for us. Round of applause for Ivan Words.
Yes.
So, good evening. Thank you for having this conversation. I think it's very necessary. And I was very inspired to respond, but I had to like sit there and be quiet. But it's my time to speak now. A couple of years ago, I traveled to South Africa, And it was a trip that really shook me up. I was really, of course, everybody is searching for their own identity. We're talking about authenticity here. And I was at a place in my life that I was just looking around, seeing what was going on, and I couldn't root. And when I was in Cape Town with all these amazing poets, and every table talk was about roots. It was about authenticity. It was about earth. So and when I was there, it felt like I didn't have one poem I could share. Hold up. So that's the piece. The piece I'm going to share is the piece I wrote during my stay. I have only one unfinished poem. Far from where I live, I came home, humbly planting my knees like seeds in fertile soil. She calls. I could not always hear. I surrender. The water remembers. The water gives, takes, cleanses. The water remembers. Gaia, Mamaisa, Moeder Aarde, Chomolungma, Mama Terra, whatever her name is, I call for you. Washed off the mask from my face, the West wants me to wear with water fresh from the mountain creek. Where I live, being free means you took a day off from school or work. Where I live, it's more important to make a living than to live. Where I live, people seem to care more about status than life. Teenagers commit suicide because they are bullied for not wearing the latest trends and brands. And God forbid if you don't have on the right shoes, you might catch yourself on the gram with a hashtag saying, "What are those?" God forbid. But I don't worship this God. I don't worship this God my surrounding forces me to follow. This water feels shallow. I find that hard to swallow. This worship sails on a set course to a sunken place. Mama, can you speak to me of Atlantis, Wakanda, or Kemet? Please, teach me. Because where I live, they don't teach about the water body, the flow of energy, or about the elders. Mama, teach me how to hold space. Teach me how to quietly observe. You made me aware of the fact that holding space is a feminine quality. For you protect me the way a rib cage shields the vital organs. You keep me safe with your life. And they don't teach us that to be balanced, the masculine and the feminine must evenly be embraced. No matter if it were 9 months or less, nevertheless, forever she still holds the space. Mama, will you teach me about symbolism? They don't teach us to give back, except when it comes to taxes or loans. And they don't teach us to give away, to let go, instead of drowning in sorrows. I'm counting riches. I more and more realize how poor I live. Because where I live is considered rich compared to most societies. The image of Mama Africa is marginalized to a media-framed picture of a poor, begging, nagging woman holding her hands upwards, hardly able to take care of herself. And we are attached to superficial, hectic habits. It's distractive and destructive. It disconnects us from the essence. So I try to remember, like the water. But what is my essence? I'm born and raised in the city of Rotterdam in the Netherlands. Both my parents are born in Suriname. And they moved to Rotterdam in their 20s. And as in many other countries, the Dutch found their way to Suriname as well as the French and the Portuguese, but till this day, the official language is Dutch. Mama, I remember how sad it made me when you said speaking Sranang Tongo with your parents or any elder is considered disrespectful. You said if I want to make it here, I have to learn how to speak Dutch properly. But before the chains of slavery were broken, Kitikoti, it was considered disrespectful to speak Sranang Tongo in front of the master. The travel from Europe to South Africa was nothing compared to the journey within. I'm a black man with a Scandinavian name who lives in a white man's country. In Africa, I'm perceived as Western. In the Netherlands, I'm black. In Suriname, they say I'm white on the inside, like a bounty chocolate. Either way. Dit is mijn taal niet. This is not my language. These ano mi tongo. None of these languages completely resonate. Even in the unwritten language of Sranang Tongo, the oppressor wrote his name all over. So mama, only here I found out I have no language I can identify with. Teach me how to speak. I feel illiterate. And though I write poetry almost half my life, I have just this one unfinished poem. Mama, I'm blank. And everything I know or thought I know seems meaningless. I need to reframe, reclaim my being. Thank you for teaching. Far from where I live, I came home. So I surrender. The water remembers. The water gives, takes, cleanses. The water remembers. Thank you.
Wow. Thank you so much for sharing that with us, Ivan. So spoken word. There's a lot to say about spoken word. I think in the past 5 years, spoken word has become like this theme within institutions, with funds, that's something they need to support more. Mm-hmm. Can you tell me more about how the subculture of spoken word has evolved in the past 3 to 5 years? And how do you feel about that?
Wow, how it has evolved. Well, yeah, you already said it. It's everywhere. It's in commercials. It's mainstream now. Mm-hmm. And luckily for us, including myself, we are able to make a living out of it, which is nice because speaking for myself, I can actually live my passion. Mm. I love language. I love to write. I love to perform. I love to make beautiful art. So that's why I was really sparked when I was listening to these beautiful conversations. But yeah, what was the second part of your question?
How do you feel about that? So what Rudy was saying, sometimes you need to, how do you say that?
Compromise.
Compromise, that's the word, compromise. Do you feel that you have to do that?
I feel like people ask me to compromise.
In what ways?
To compromise what I speak about. To compromise my prices. Yo, okay, so it's no, huh?
Yeah.
And I don't do that. And if I feel like if I feel like I really have to compromise because winning is of course not always in money or you know, it's mm-hmm. like sometimes it's good to be out there and maybe say it in a different way. What I don't want to do is compromise my message. Yeah. But if you ask me to like edit my text, cool. There's many ways to say the same thing. Yeah. I can do that. I can still get my message out there, but I don't want to compromise my being because the reason why I am a spoken word artist, the reason why I'm an artist in the first place, is because I feel like I have to express, and I think it's essential. I think people actually die when they don't express.
Yes.
So yeah, it became a life purpose.
I love this so much. Thank you so much for sharing this. Another round of applause for Ivan Ward.
Thank you.
Woo. This is a conversation. So we have about 7 more minutes. Is there something that you are dying to discuss? Because there's so many paths, you know, so many things we can talk about. Some last words, Nita. I know you have questions, you have something to share.
There's a lot of things to digest. It's more like, because I know that when I spoke with Marjorie, this is a topic. Is it, are we doing a right job? Are we still in the sort of like train? 'Cause it goes everywhere.
I think we're way beyond what we were supposed to talk about, but I think we're also close. Like it's both.
I don't want to. I think I'm just enjoying to hear different generations and also people coming from different. Well, we all come from different places, and it's interesting. And at some point, it's recognizable. This we call it a battle. We call it compromises. Sometimes is it a compromise or is it part of the job?
Exactly.
I don't know, because I mean, I've been, if this is your passion. Ivan talked about passion, and you just go for it, and then
you just do.
You become an artivist. I thought of that word, like
artivist.
Wow.
Yeah, because where was the time? Or talking about time, it's an interesting question. I was still digesting. What if you take time away?
Good, yeah.
When I was young, I thought there was no time, and I don't know whether it's a compromise, but I dedicated a lot to get there. To sometimes be more an activist than an artist. And that's one of the reasons that I have the luxury to be, although it's a mess in this country, still have the luxury to decide to stop.
Yes.
To find the artist.
Yeah, that is
and retire as an activist. Because there are young people now. Children go out.
He's like, not me. I'm not an activist.
I drop by and visit you guys to surf.
Yeah, but that's the thing that you just said is like having the privilege to let it, to let it go, to not compromise, to say goodbye and do whatever you want to do, and
not getting hanged. Or
exactly. But because I also feel like I have that privilege now, but also because I have that privilege because my subculture became mainstream, and that's why all the brands want to work with people of color, black folks. Like last year, my phone ringed like 1,000 times because Black Lives Matter. And how can we, as a brand, get Alkebulan Late Night Talks into whatever they're trying to do? And so, because I'm coming back to what you said, because it's like repeating in my head as well, because I so feel what you're saying. And I'm at that point where I have the privilege now that people come to me with money and we can say no, so we don't have to compromise anymore. Yeah, of course, yes. I gladly help people out to get that money. This is why I work in this commercialized industry, to make sure that we can get all that money. So please come by. But I know that it's annoying that we have to become a trend before we get what we want to create. That's my frustration for years, and the question of and that this is a very hard and difficult question for me, is like, can I survive in this country? I feel that question very hard every single day, and I always come to the answer differently. Like yesterday, I would say no, and today I probably still would say no. Maybe tomorrow I will say yes. But also I'm Dutch, because I was born here. So where am I supposed to go and create what I want to create and have the freedom and do whatever I want to do? It's so hard. So it's that's why your question was repeating in my head, because I was like, I wish we were at the point where we had a podium for kunsten, which was like, that's a fund here in the Netherlands that was of a black POC run fund. I wish we were there yet, but also, like, please let it be women. Sorry, man.
Yeah,
and
definitely.
Yes. So I'm like, that question is gonna keep repeating in my head today, because it's on so many levels. I feel that we're still not there yet, and and what you said, like, if you take away time, what is left? The question is, can we band together and create that? Are we that generation that comes together, forgets about the differences, and find the similarities that we have as someone who's from Ghana, from Suriname, from anywhere else, South Africa? Are we ready to come together, lose all the ego, put our money where our mouth is, and support each other? Because that's the point where I feel like we're not there.
No.
Yeah.
I think that's a very good place for me to inquire, actually, because, you know, we're talking about, okay, there's this group of people who don't give funding to a certain group of people because of the differences, and then we're creating another group of people. But I think what we need to inquire is when all these creations are going on, what's the intention? Is the intention to also be in a place of power?
No.
No, just to, I think just to think, to think about, because sometimes, in my experience with a lot of young people is that in most cases in our backgrounds, we were trying to revolt away from the big establishments. What we didn't realize, we also created establishments. Yes. But what was interesting is that the people, the big establishments, they still feel like their intentions are pure. And even us, we feel our intentions are pure, but you work with young people who will come to you and they're like, I don't belong. I don't belong. Is there a place for them not to belong? You know, we just need to also be aware, you know, that it's very easy to be part, again, I'm going to use the circus, also create another circus where actually there's no compassion, you know, like the intention is there, but because what you mentioned, that sometimes it starts small and then it grows big, and then can you really still be aware of the young people or whatever, or old people that are in there and their intentions, and also you're working with people who are also on their journey of identity search, which never stops.
Never stops.
You know, because it's always apart from the outward, but also inside within you, you know, because when you talk about, this, I remember back in the days were like, this organization is not giving us funding and all that. It's like, we also, at some point I felt like we also want to get and do, you know?
That's the capitalist society that we live in, and then we have to quit capitalism.
But I think the question is
it's a trap.
Yeah, it's a trap
makes
in a
us
way.
link it to our worth, you know. So
because it's painful for a young person when you feel you've created something, you know, that they can belong, you know, and then they tell you that I don't really belong. I feel like you care about a certain group of people, because like you really have to be very conscious as well, because there's no somehow you might become a judge or a controller. We call them gatekeepers, who also keep as well, you know, and then there's a breakaway, and then there's another one, and you just realize we're actually not living, we're not doing, we're just also taking and creating, and then somebody takes and recreates.
That's what I meant. Like, are we ready to let that ego go?
Exactly. I felt you when you said that, you know?
Leads now.
Because also the ego is about getting. I need to get this so I can do for. But and sometimes it's
it's ego-driven society. But where do we practice compassion? And where do we practice to be conscious? I mean, there's the money. That's a cool kid. When are you out of fashion?
Yeah.
I mean, all the billboards have a pretty black face. It's not too dark.
Yeah.
And then, you know, where's the new ones? You know, I'm also listening to this lady. Where is the compassion? How do we practice it in the West? I don't know what. Maybe it happens in, I don't know, in a convent or something. But, but we that's a lack, and we keep sort of like. Because you touch me if you talk about compassion, because I don't hear that word so much. We hear about egos, we hear about testosterone, you know, we all know them. But what is compassion? And
I think we have to end this conversation. I really don't want to end yet. I really don't want to end this conversation. There's still so much to talk about, but I want to thank you all for being part of this conversation. I think we need a part 2. Marjorie, take notes, please. Okay, so 3 minutes ago, Kimberly Agyarko, she started hosting a podcast overseas in the Salon Room. At 8:30, the dance performance Symphony of 21 by dance company Docs and Batalo East, in collaboration with Afrovibes, will start here. Tomorrow, the Afrovibes talk will continue at 6:30 with new guests. And tomorrow it will be a collaboration with Zaam magazine. On Saturday, we have our last Afrovibe talks hosted by Maarten van Hinten with a short keynote by artistic leader of Afrovibes, Jay Pather. And Kimberly will also host her podcast with new guests again, and we'll close with a showpiece in the Grote Zaal. To check out the whole schedule, please check out the website of Afrovibes and the Balie. I want to thank the audience. I want to thank the people in South Africa. Another one time for my table guests. One round of applause for us all. Thank you so much. My name is Stephanie Afrifa.
I dig it. Come on.